Hey, I'm Julie Tristan. Welcome to Healthful Conversations with SSM Health. I have a special guest today, Dr. Rachel Charney, SLU Care Pediatrician at SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Rachel.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Can I call you Dr. Rachel or should I say Dr. Charney? I don't even know.
Either one is fine.
All right. Well, today we're going to talk about kids and mental health and checkups. So what should I do if I think my child may be exhibiting signs of needing mental/behavioral help?
Well, that sort of depends on what your concerns are. The most important thing we always have to look at with a child who you have concerns about is, are those concerns dangerous for that child at that moment? Do you need to seek out emergency care? Otherwise, for most issues, your best bet is to start by calling your pediatrician.
What are the signs and the symptoms that I should be looking for that would indicate that I need to seek some help for them?
Well, sometimes those signs can be really direct and sometimes they're a little more indirect. So what you may have, your child may just come to you and say, I'm struggling right now. I'm concerned and feeling depressed and like I want to hurt myself, or I'm having these thoughts. Or you may notice other things about your child, changes in their behavior. Suddenly their grades aren't where they used to be. They don't want to hang out with their friends anymore. They don't want to go to their after school activities. They're not sleeping well. They're more cranky or irritable or picking fights with their siblings that isn't typical for them. They may just not even eat as well, or you may find differences in their artwork where suddenly they're drawing to express themselves. Those are all different things that you might see.
That's interesting. The artwork part, like that's a very good thing to pay attention to as well. Very telling sometimes.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in the signs and the symptoms for younger children and adolescents or teens?
There can be some differences. And sometimes it's just a matter of how much your child is around you versus, as a child gets older into those adolescent time periods, that there's a little bit more out in the community. So with a younger child, a lot of times when kids are under stress for any sort of reasons, they tend to what's called regress in their behavior. So they'll suddenly start acting like they used to when they were younger. Especially with our little kids, they may lose milestones that they used to have. They may have more differences, even with toilet training and things like that when they're under significant psychological stress. With your older elementary school kids, again, you may notice those same differences where their grades aren't going well. They're anxious. Maybe their teachers are saying they can't stay still. They're getting into fights on the playground. If you suddenly have discipline issues with a child that you didn't used to have, that's a good sign to look into things. With an adolescent, you may notice that just seems like, you may be like, well, is this just them being a teenager? If you're noticing things that are extreme, things that are lasting longer than a short period of time, those are all clues that you should start looking into things a little more closely.
Discuss the cadence of what is appropriate for seeking help from a primary care doctor, pediatrician first versus what is necessary for more urgent assistance like an ER or urgent care.
The most important thing with a child to figure out first is if they are at risk to themselves or someone else right now. So if a child is talking about wanting to hurt themselves or someone else, even if you find it on their social media or one of their friends say that they said it, even if that child says, hey, I was only kidding, that's the time to take that seriously. You need to make sure that a child gets immediate assistance, generally at some sort of immediate behavioral health center right away for that. Similarly, if a child is threatening to harm or attempting to harm someone else, we don't want to put anyone else at risk either. So those are things that you can't wait on. Other things like changes in behavior and activities, those are the sort of things you can start with your pediatrician's office. And if your pediatrician's office isn't able to help you, often going through your school is a good way to start getting hooked up with resources in your area because there are resources available. Sometimes it just feels like it's hard to find, especially when you're in the middle of a crisis with your own family.
Love it. Lots of good information. Dr. Rachel Charney from SLU Care, you're a pediatrician at SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. Thank you so much for all your information today.
Yes. And one other thing I'd like to make sure people are aware of, SSM recently opened a behavioral health urgent care that can see both children and adults, and it's open 7 days a week. So that is another option when you need to get emergent care for a child too.
And I'm guessing for that, we just go to ssmhealth.com to find out more info.
Exactly.
All right. This has been another helpful conversation with SSM Health.